Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way Galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Unhappy Hour here on the TNAM Radio Network. My name is Brian Engelman and I am your host. Real quick, make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/The New American Media. Leave your comments on our 4.5 years of shows. If you watch those ads, it's like tossing a couple pennies and are wishing well. Follow us on Twitter at American_media_. We are covering these attacks in Paris by these cowardly rat bastards. I just don't understand what's wrong with the world. What's wrong with people? You got a personal problem, and I can't empathize, I can't support, I can't condone violence if it's someone you know. I can't do it. But I understand it. What's that? Chris Rock says something about, now I'm not saying what OJ did was okay, but I understand. You know, at least if there's something, I don't know, I can't understand terrorism. If you haven't been paying attention, I'll get you up to speed real quick on that. You know, being a musician myself, Eagles of Death Metal were performing at a sold out. I believe it was sold out, 1,500 people. I think they've recovered 118 bodies at least. Gunmen walked in there and were just slowly picking them off one by one by one by one. And how does that relate to sports? French President Francois Hollande. Don't need that highlight. He was evacuated from Stade de France during France's match against Germany on Friday. Unprecedented terrorist attacks in Paris. 3 people died outside of the stadium. 2 loud explosions were heard about 15 minutes into the match, and the French president was evacuated. Police union official says the explosions were from 2 suicide attacks and a bombing. The explosions went off simultaneously near 2 of the entrances in a McDonald's restaurant. Didn't provide any more details, but yeah, deadliest attacks in Paris since World War II. Hostage taking in a music venue, carnage in the building, and apparently they were shooting a bunch, and then they just started throwing grenades at clusters of people that were huddled on the ground, cowering for their lives. God, I wish there were more armed people, more armed good people in this world, more concealed carry people that could just shoot these madmen. At least give them a fighting chance. I can't stand disarmed people. I hate when we're sitting ducks. Anyway, so it's an increased alert going out through the NBA with the full schedule. NFL, security at our games is always at a heightened state of alert. Yeah. So this is a pseudo sports story. This happened in the general neighborhood where Charlie Hebdo's offices were. And, wonder who's doing it. They're saying it's ISIS, saying it's angry militant Islamists that just want to kill to make a point. What is the point? The point is you shouldn't go anywhere near that ideology because it's crazy, right? I mean, what is the point we're supposed to take from it? Anyway, I'll talk about that more on one of our other shows, one of our Agree to Disagree shows. But hey, let's shift gears, man. Sorry to have that. But it's breaking news, and it's really pissing me off. That's why I do a political show called Agree to Disagree. I talk about current events over there. I know we generally try to stay out of politics for the most part in sports on this sports show. Okay, who am I kidding? I love to bring it up. I love to cross-pollinate politics into sports. When it's necessary, when it's called for, rather. So. But anyhow, I try to keep most of the politics on Agree to Disagree. We got the archive at thenewamericanmedia.com. Check it out. I hope you do. But equally disappointing. No, not equally disappointing. Let me rephrase that. Moving from one sad subject to yet another sad subject, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, and the team's terrible. I haven't done a show on them in a couple weeks because it was like we had 2 games in 5 days, and it was a loss after another loss, and it was just so disappointing. I just kind of put it out of sight, out of mind, out of my memory. But we'll bring in a lifelong Cleveland sports fan and former NBA scout Zak Baris, current NBA consultant Zak Baris, and we're going to talk about the Browns. Then move over to the Cavs. You know, it didn't do so well on game 1, and now rattled off a nice winning streak and, second best record in the NBA, looking very good. So there's a little light at the end of that tunnel, and of course JT Barrett gets a Dewey, or not a Dewey, what the heck are they calling it? Something different. OV, operating a vehicle impaired. Stupid. In the days of Uber, especially when you're just rolling around on campus, give me a break. Why are you getting behind the wheel, man? Especially if you're the starting quarterback of an undefeated number 1 ranked team. Okay, we're number 3, but come on, we all know we're number 1 until somebody beats us. So anyway, we'll talk about all this and more with Zak Baris. We'll get him on the show now. Well, that's usually where I click it, and it... There we go. Click it old school.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Oh, Zach, I'm watching these bombings in Paris. Have you been following this?
I have.
And it was at a soccer match outside of, in France, and so obviously it's a quasi sports related story. But being a musician, just knowing that, these gunmen walked into a concert venue and just started picking people, I can't stand it.
Sitting there on hashtag doing terrorism is not a religion. I'm like looking at it and I'm just like BS.
Elaborate on that, Zach.
That committed this crime, so I'm not even going to get into it.
I know.
Racist there. But,
well, I mean, come on, it's not Buddhists doing this. It's not Hare Krishnas doing this. It's not Jehovah's Witnesses doing this. It's not the Mormons doing this. I don't know why
it's not
people.
The Christians and it's not the Jews either. There's one group who's responsible, taking responsibility for it already, and we know who it is. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to get into a hate-filled rant on the air.
That's fine. I'll give you that. I'll allow you that. I can't stand it, and that's why I do the political show, the Agree to Disagree, and we get into it there. But just as a one final parting shot on that, one final thought, and we'll shift over to the Cleveland Browns' misery. We all might want to just press pause for a second and reconsider bringing hundreds of thousands of people from war-torn countries, fighting-age men, as Trojan horses to flood into Europe, to flood into America, to resettle in. Man, they're just Trojan horses. This is a bad. I text my buddy, and I will move along after this, Zach, but I was texting my buddy. He's like, man, you've been following this, and we're going back and forth. And I said, I might be living in hell. This might be hell. I said, you and I, we're 2 rational dudes in a world that makes 0 sense. I just can't understand what's going on. I don't get it. I don't know why this is my task, my challenge, my daily struggle, especially running a media site at the New American Media. It's maddening. But anyway, thoughts and prayers to everybody impacted by all that violence and all of the senseless violence around this world. So anyway, let's talk about the people impacted by the lousy play of the Cleveland Browns. That would be Browns fans, Cleveland sports fans. I haven't done a show on the Browns since after the Rams game. So if we want to just kind of get caught up to speed here, and then we'll look at the Steelers, I mean, we can talk about the fact that the Browns front office, there are reports coming out, they don't know who's in charge. If it's Alex Shiner, they don't know who it is. Cam Irving's getting his first start. Johnny Manziel's getting another start. But real quick, what did we learn with the Cardinals game? We had a lead there. We let it slip away. What's the takeaway from that game?
The takeaway is this team stinks. They do. They do. They're, and here's the thing. Their talent level. I mean, you got Dante Whitner going out on the weekends partying, comes home hammered. I'm not even going to get into that one either. That bothers me to begin with. I'm not going to get into it. The guy lives in my building. I've seen it all, and it drives me nuts to see these guys going out, getting messed up on Friday night, and then on Sunday they're clearly not all there. It starts all with the coaching. It starts with the front office. They've brought in a culture here that, Ray Farmer, obviously, he hasn't done his job drafting well. we don't know who's in charge. Alex Scheiner's not a football man. He's a business. He's a business guy.
Yeah.
So Alex Scheiner didn't have any football responsibilities in Dallas. He's come in. He's done a hell of a job on the marketing side for the Browns. He helped get the renovation started by financing it through the city. So there you go. He won that. Stick to what you're good at. Don't start making football decisions when you're not a football guy.
Maybe he learned it from Jerry Jones down there in Dallas.
Jerry Jones played football.
Okay, fair. All right, I'll give you that.
Jerry Jones is also, as bad as Jerry Jones can be sometimes, if Tony Romo was healthy, the Dallas team, they're a playoff team. Another difference, too. And Jerry Jones has also won multiple Super Bowls.
All right, that's fair. I'll give you that. Okay, so but there were reports that during the trade deadline, people didn't know who was actually in charge. What are we supposed to make of that?
That's a problem. You're going to have another front office shakeup at the end of the year. If Ray Farmer can't pull the trigger on a trade and he's supposed to be in charge of player personnel decisions, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Why are you going to sit there and trade Joe Thomas for a late first-round pick anyway and a second-round pick? One, you're going to have to replace Joe Thomas with that said first-round pick anyway. And it is impossible to find a Pro Bowl left tackle.
Yeah, they're at a premium. That's one of the toughest things to get. Probably that and a quarterback.
So there you go. There's problem number one right there. So you're already using that pick right there. And if you want to use ammo to go and draft your future quarterback, Jared Goff from Cal, let's just say he's the guy. I'm not saying he actually is, but let's just say, we'll assume he's the guy right now. And that's who you're going to take. You don't have a left tackle protecting his blind side. It takes years for these teams to find left tackles. They don't come along every day. You're not going to get a Hall of Famer like Joe Thomas. And believe it or not, Pro Football Focus rated the Cleveland Browns offensive line as second best in the league.
Oh, my Lord.
But. Their tight end blocking is the worst in the league. Their wide receiver pass blocking and run blocking has been the worst in the league. Mm-hmm. And their fullback, too, which doesn't bode well. I mean, it makes the offensive line look bad. Mitchell Schwartz, according to Pro Football Focus, is having a Pro Bowl year. Greco's having close to it. Actually, Greco's having one, too. Mac's the only one grading out, not at a Pro Bowl level, but he's still above average.
Yet the team is very below average.
That's something to think about. You have 5 guys on the line that are all grading at Pro Bowl, 4 guys that are grading at Pro Bowl and above, all pro. And your quarterbacks are constantly getting sacked. They step up in the pocket and they get clobbered. I mean, Johnny Manziel can't even see in the pocket. I mean, he even said it. He's like, I can't see. Well, you draft a quarterback, and Johnny's really not 5'11 and a half. He's more like 5'10.
Jeez. Can't we build him like large cleats? Like platform cleats? Something?
Yeah, put 8-inch heels on the guy.
Like Tom Cruise or something. Well, okay, so, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, why aren't we doing all bootlegs and just designing a different kind of offense for us? I mean,
we don't have,
Russell Wilson can do it.
Russell Wilson's having a bad year, too.
Well,
Russell Wilson was also built around a champion defense and a great O-line up until this year. They traded Max Unger. Why did Seattle need to blow it up? Seattle, I'll get into this real quick. And Seattle went to the Super Bowl, won it 2 years ago, getting within an inch of winning it last year.
Oh, yeah.
And they go and get rid of your starting center who's been a rock on your team. You trade him for a tight end. You're a run-first team. You don't even pass the ball to Jimmy Graham, and you give a first-round pick. Well, I mean, what were they thinking? You came within 1 yard of winning a Super Bowl. 1 yard. If you would have just given the frickin' ball to Lynch, you would have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. When you're that close, there's really not a need to blow it up. When you're the Cleveland Cavaliers minus LeBron, okay, it's time to blow it up and rebuild, and you got to acquire assets, and then you make your move, and then once you do, you overpay, and you say, here's our window, and you go for it. So, I mean, I understand why the Denver Broncos were calling about Joe Thomas. I would have been doing it too, and then the question remains, is this the first time Elway wasn't able to beat us in the final seconds? Did we luck out with that, or was it just from sheer confusion? We wanted to pull the trigger, and we screwed it up. I don't know. I don't really understand the rationale there. But, okay, so we learned that the Browns stink after watching the Cardinals game, and we were leading that one. We were in front. We were dominating that game for a little while, and then we just fell apart in the second half. Bengals lost 31-10. Any takeaways from that one with Johnny under center?
No, I think other than the fact that I think Johnny's a mess, if you let him start, let him start. I mean, you're not going to win with him. So, I mean, I'd be shocked if they come away with a win on Sunday and Johnny's starting. And the only reason they will, it'll be because of the defense if Landry Jones plays that bad. I just don't think Johnny's the answer at quarterback. But you do have to find out. I just don't see him being the answer. And go in there next year and get your quarterback, because no matter what you do, I think we realized that last year. The Browns had a good football team at one point last year. A very good football team.
We were 5-2 in first place, something like that, with Brian Hoyer under the quarterback. Until Alex Mack got injured, we were in first place. We were doing really well last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, right now, if it started, I think we pick second or third.
But they don't. They're not going. I don't see them winning another game unless it's against San Francisco. I just don't see where the win comes on the schedule. Unless they somehow surprise Baltimore and Monday Night Football, because Baltimore's a bad team. They have two bad teams left in their schedule. I mean, you still have to face Seattle. I think they have Kansas City too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we got the Chiefs. That's the one I was looking at. They're 3-5.
Is that at home or is that on the road?
That's at KC, it looks like.
Yeah, okay, so they're not going to win that game either. You don't go to Arrowhead and beat them when you're the Browns.
Yeah, the matchup predictor says 77% Kansas City in their favor.
Okay, so there you go.
Whatever that means.
Odds are they're not going to beat the Chiefs. The only, this team I think is going to be 2-14 or 3-13.
God.
Especially if Johnny's starting quarterback. I think McCown gives them a much better shot at winning, but I just don't see this team coming around. Their defense has played poorly. Joe Hayden has been bad when he's been on the field. I mean, they're a train wreck right now, Brian.
Yeah, Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, Niners, Seahawks, Chiefs, Steelers.
I was debating about going to the Pittsburgh game this week. I'm like, why don't I subject myself to this?
Yeah, it's not like you go to one game a year. You have it's a lot of pain. I went to the Charger game, in San Diego, and I'll tell you what, man, the way we lost and just going through, it's just a lot of emotions bubbled up for me. I am so tired of not even mediocrity, of subpar, substandard, failing grade garbage. It really is that bad with this team. And if you're going to be bad, you might as well be miserably bad. If you're not getting it done, you might as well play the quarterback to figure out, do I need to draft one with the number 2 pick next year? I think that's where we're at.
I personally think they need a quarterback this year. I think if that quarterback is available, if someone like Goff is available, it's not going to be Cardale. Cardale's not going number 1 or number 2. He just had a bad year, and he's clearly not ready to be starting in the NFL yet. He's still very mistake prone.
He was third string on Ohio State for a reason.
He's still a couple years away. Cardale's still a couple years away. I think Cardale can be a star in this league. I really do. I don't see why not. He's got a huge arm, but Cardale's one of those guys. I can already tell you right now. I've predicted this before, and I'll probably be right. Be a second or third round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll sit him on the bench for 3 years until Roethlisberger's ready to go out. Then bam. He'll be ready to start, and he'll be the next franchise quarterback. That's probably what's going to happen.
Your rationale makes a lot of sense. They draft a big bad bruiser from an Ohio State or a Big Ten team. It kind of fits the mold of what they do over there.
I just no matter what, I like Cardale. I think if he comes to Cleveland, he's going to get thrown in the fire right away, and he's not going to become a star ever, and he'll bust right out. If the Browns get a guy like Goff, that's the guy you can build around immediately. And, look at last year's football team. This team was 6-3 at one point with decent quarterback play. They were 6-3. As soon as that dissipated, Brian Hoyer started throwing a lot of interceptions, squaring into one receiver. Brian Hoyer's a good backup. He's not a good starter. And that's what happened to the Browns last year. Brian Hoyer was just Brian Hoyer, and they caught up with him, and they went to Johnny. But it got to the point where they couldn't do anything anymore with Brian Hoyer. They were stuck. Brian Hoyer's not a guy that's going to lead you to 12, 13 wins a year. He's a guy that's going to get you to the 7 to 9 range.
Yeah,
and for a while,
the wheels fell off.
Enough, and the Browns' defense played well enough to get them wins. It got to the point where the offense was so bad at one point, they couldn't do anything anymore. And Josh Gordon certainly didn't make matters better. Hoyer focused on him and threw 3 picks in that game against Atlanta. They still won. But Josh Gordon, he was bad. And Josh Gordon was all over the place. Hoyer kept staring him down the whole time. The Browns are just so frustrating on so many levels.
Yeah.
But, imagine if you – I personally think the Browns will wind up with the number 1 overall pick. I just don't see them winning again. I really don't. Unless they beat San Francisco. And the Browns don't win football games in December.
Not this version. The Bernie Kosar version used to.
I don't even hate Mike Pettin. I actually like what Pettin's doing. I don't think Johnny's ready to play. I don't think he's good enough. I think Pettin's a guy looking out for his job, and I think Pettin wants to play the best possible player. And I think that McCown is the better quarterback. I mean, I was at that Baltimore game. I watched him. He's a better quarterback than Johnny Manziel. Manziel made a couple nice throws in the Tennessee game, but, Tennessee gift-wrapped that with their 4 or 5 turnovers in that game, too.
Right.
Manziel only threw 15 passes. You can't be an NFL quarterback and get away with throwing 15 passes.
Yeah. Well, but on the flip side is throwing it 50 times. Is that a recipe that makes a lot of sense? I mean,
teams are more likely to win the game when they're throwing the ball 50 times, like a Drew Brees.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like the balance, but other than Duke Johnson, like we have Robert Turbin. Oh, so excited for him. He fumbles, we cut him. I mean, go figure. It's a comedy of errors. They were calling it what are the Golden Boys? I was listening the other day. They did a promo. It said Cleveland Browns, home of Berea diarrhea. Like they're making like all these little fake promos and just calling it Berea diarrhea. I mean, it was so perfect for a team named the Browns. No, I'm looking here at the standings. The Lions are 1-7, Browns are 2-7, Chargers 2-7, Tennessee 2-6, Cowboys 2-6, Jacksonville 2-6, Baltimore 2-6.
I see every one of those teams winning again, including the Lions. The Lions will pull one off at one point.
Well, the interesting thing there, you look at the quarterbacks. You got Matthew Stafford, you got Phillip Rivers, you have Marcus Mariota, you have Cowboys Tony Romo, you have Blake Bortles, and you have Joe Flacco. All these they're all two-win teams. None of them are going to be drafting a quarterback, I wouldn't think, with that first pick. They all kind of have some. Maybe the Lions, I'm hearing rumors and rumblings, but Browns certainly have the most questionable quarterback situation out of all of those teams, I would say, before you get to San Francisco with 3 wins. That's all up in the air, too. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm hearing things about the Memphis quarterback, just that beast of a man. What is he, 6'7" down there? So, I don't know. It's not all about measurables and tangibles. It's a lot about the intangibles. And basically, to wrap this up, let's move off of this because the Cavaliers are playing well. I'd rather talk about them and the Buckeyes real quick, before we wrap this up. You're basically saying you would be very surprised if the Browns win the rest of the year, let alone this week against Landry Jones-led Pittsburgh Steelers, right?
Yeah, I'd be very shocked if the Browns still won.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard for me to care at this point of the year. It's really hard for me to get excited for it because it's so disappointing. But, like I said, fortunately, luckily, LeBron James came back to town, and it's changed the Cleveland landscape of sports. Talk about what you're seeing out of this team. I mean, obviously, Golden State being undefeated, that's pretty impressive, and a lot of people are saying Steph Curry, you can just put his name on the MVP trophy already. Let's start with the Cavs before we talk about the league. What are you seeing on this team so far after the game one clunker? We love to lose those opening games. I've been pretty impressed with Mo Williams. I mean, maybe we could start with him. What do you see out of him filling in for Kyrie?
Mo's played at an all-star level. I mean, what can I say so far? He looks great. I said this in the preseason. The Cavaliers, when Mo Williams was ranked at 220 in the player ranking, it was a joke. It looks like the Cavaliers really haven't missed a beat without Kyrie in the lineup.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible to think about. I wonder how it's going to change the chemistry of the team when he does get back. Maybe you think it'll be seamless, or you think it'll be a little clunky? I
think it'll be pretty seamless. Mo Williams going to the bench to run that second unit will be huge, and when you put Dellavedova in for 6 to 8 minutes a night, I think it only makes it that much better. Yeah,
I said that today too. Delly is as a third option. Oh, that's great because he got so burned out in the playoffs. Just that energy and that tenacity and the defense. It's something that makes your team stronger. It wears the other team out on offense when he's playing defense, and that really does help the team. Cavs right now are trailing by 6 to the New York Knicks. Go figure. But what else are you seeing on the team? They were saying that they want to make Kevin Love more of a priority on offense, and you're seeing a little bit of a different performance. He looks a little bit more comfortable out there, doesn't he?
Yeah. I'm going to say this with the Cavs this year. Their chemistry looks so much better than it did a year ago. Their chemistry is off the charts. It's so much better.
Where do you see that manifesting? How do you see that in play?
Well, I mean, you can tell they're passing. The guys are quick. They're not turning over the ball as much, which is, I think, been the biggest thing. These guys look to be in sync. They're looking at each other. With the no-look passes, you didn't start seeing those until the playoffs last year.
Oh, man, I've seen Mo Williams. I love that. Is there a name for that move, that dribble penetration, where he goes underneath the basket and cuts it back with like a backdoor cutting LeBron James for a dunk? That's like Delhi to Tristan, that alley-oop. That's kind of a signature move.
It's a team that's playing in sync, and that's what I like about this team so much. They look to be, they look to have so much chemistry, and it looks like Mo Williams never missed a step not playing with LeBron for the last 5 years.
Yeah, and that's scary. Mo Williams looks...
Think about that for a second. One of the reasons Cleveland lost to Golden State last year in the finals was not because Golden State was the better basketball team. Golden State was a healthier basketball team. And they still had trouble beating the Cavs. A lot of trouble beating the Cavs. Golden State's style of offense works very well in the Western Conference. It works well against 95% of the teams very easily. Cleveland's one of the few teams that can slow them down. We witnessed it last year with Chicago, too. Chicago slowed them down, too. You can slow down Golden State, you can beat them, which is one of the reasons I still think Golden State's coming out of the West. But I think San Antonio, as they progress, might be able to stop them. I don't know just because I want to see how these guys age on San Antonio. But if you look at Golden State last year, Golden State won 4-2 in the Casters. It could have easily gone to 7 games. I mean, if we would have had, the Cavaliers almost winning in game 1 last year when it went to overtime, and then unfortunately Kyrie Irving broke his kneecap.
Well, and I've said that too. That there was a phantom traveling call on Timofey Mozgov. If that doesn't happen, we win it in regulation. Kyrie never blows out his kneecap. That's a totally different series. We could have.
Kyrie probably would have blown out his kneecap. He was on the fringe of blowing it out. Don't forget how unhealthy he was during the playoffs the entire time. Don't forget that. That probably would have happened either way.
It's possible.
It would have happened either way. I'm telling you, that was a non-preventable injury at that point in the season. Unless he would have hung it up beforehand and not done that. Wow, nice dunk by Mozgov. Unless he would have just hung it up at that point, that knee was coming apart as it was. I mean, it just was bound to happen. It just is. And he kept playing through it, and you saw he wasn't healthy during the playoffs. But, okay, let's take a look back at it. This year you have Mo Williams. Dellavedova is only a year better. Dellavedova looks like a much better player than he did a year ago. I will tell you that right now.
In what way does he look better?
He just looks like, he doesn't look like a rookie anymore.
Okay.
He doesn't look like a rookie or a second-year player anymore. He looks like, a guy who's been in the league a couple of years, who's established a presence, and imagine putting him in the game when Kyrie and, Mo Williams is not a defender. But, you need to defend for 6 to 8 minutes a night in the fourth quarter against Steph Curry, throw in Dellavedova. That's where, Curry struggled against Delhi a lot last year during the playoffs until Delhi just got too tired.
Yeah, it changed after the first few games. He was shutting down the MVP.
The Cavaliers can bring their own pace and play a slower game. You can mix it up with the lineups, and it forces Golden State to change their hand. And that's something the Cavaliers were able to do until they just couldn't do it anymore because they didn't have any depth.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll be a collision course. Obviously the Spurs with LaMarcus Aldridge, it's, getting off to a slower start.
I tend to think Golden State's road to the finals is easier from what I've witnessed earlier this season than what was once thought. Let's put it that way. I still think Oklahoma City will be there. I still think San Antonio will be there. I think Houston looks really bad right now. They're bound to come around. And then you take a look at the Clippers. The Clippers just don't scare me for some reason. They just don't.
Something's missing. I mean, they have the championship pedigree at coach. But
still, something's missing from the Clippers. I don't know what it is, but it's missing. It was missing last year. I never thought the Clippers could beat Golden State last year.
But what is it? Is it a chemistry thing where it's like they're 3 me players and it's not a team effort? I know what you're saying.
What the deal is there. I just don't, I don't know if they have the firepower, and sometimes they look like the best team in the league. You watch them, you're like, how did this team ever lose? When J.J. Redick is there draining threes, Chris Paul can't miss a shot, you got Blake in the post, you got DeAndre Jordan ripping every rebound out, and you go, how did this team lose? And you look at it other night, when Austin Rivers was playing well last year too, you're like, this team's never going to lose. And then they have their nights, and you're just like, okay.
So they're not consistent. They're not.
No. Consistency is the Clippers' biggest problem. Golden State is consistent. Steph Curry, I don't know how he got put as the 4th best player in the league. Steph Curry clearly after the finals demonstrated he was number 1B maybe. You know, with LeBron still being a little bit better than Steph, and then Steph Curry's the second best player in the league. Don't even tell me, I mean, as great as Anthony Davis is, don't even tell me that Anthony Davis is as good as Steph Curry. Anthony Davis is a top 5 player, not as good as Steph.
And Anthony Davis in a year or two, if he has the right pieces around him, he might be there. But chill out on that just a little bit. But he's already, top 10, top 5. But New Orleans isn't looking very good either. They're looking terrible, 1-7.
No, they look terrible.
Yeah.
They've been injured. Davis hasn't played great. I mean, that doesn't shock me too much. I mean, I'll tell you the teams I like so far. I was at the Utah game the other night. I was very impressed by the Jazz. I like Rudy Gobert a lot. I was very impressed by the Jazz. I think they're a good basketball team. Also, that was one of the most epic performances I've ever seen by LeBron. He just took over.
In what? Okay, and we've been Cavs fans for a while, but when you say took over, what did he?
He literally took the game into his own hands. Defensively, he did, and offensively. The tempo he controlled, he started controlling the game. If an offensive player even had the ball around LeBron when he was on defense, he took the ball away.
So it was masterful.
He was unbelievable. I mean, I'm just sitting there watching. I'm like, I forgot how much I appreciate LeBron. You don't get to see this every night from LeBron because he just doesn't need to do this. This is what he did his first time around in Cleveland, and he had to control the pace. This is what he did last year in the playoffs.
And I guess when it gets into a close game, a dogfight, that was a tough game against the Jazz. But so he can turn it on when he needs to. He doesn't need to do it most of the time, which is probably good, so he doesn't burn himself out. Like we were saying, but no, you said that it was unbelievable, and it reminded me of what was it, Frank Caliendo's impersonation of Bill Walton? Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me to ask you what LA sports guy thinks about LeBron James buying a $22 million home in Los Angeles.
I don't think it means anything. I think it's a vacation home. I wouldn't be too worried about LeBron leaving for the Lakers. I mean, what kind of talent do they even have there?
Yeah, they got some up-and-coming stuff, but okay.
No, not really. D'Angelo Russell looks terrible. Byron Scott's their head coach. The Cavaliers have the second highest payroll in NBA league history. I think they've done everything to appease LeBron.
That's true. But what would LA sports guy think? That's what I wanted. I know what Zak Baris thinks, but because and you saw it on the post and you read the comments, on Facebook or Twitter or what have you. A lot of LA fans, they're reading a lot into that. They're getting real excited because they think it means something.
You get LeBron James in free agency to go along with Kevin Durant?
But Kevin Durant's been injured. You think you could get LeBron and Kevin Durant?
Yeah, Holmes. You trade around our taste. Like...
It was funny because Greg Moore and I, the very first thing, as soon as I posted it, Greg commented, I wonder what LA sports guy would think of it. He was like, yeah, man, LeBron James to the Lakers.
I would have paid to listen to like Ryan Russillo the other day or Maxie Marcellus in the morning. I would just paid to listen to that with all the call. I mean, that was my favorite part of the show when you get the callers in there. They just say, oh, yeah, LeBron James coming to LA and blitz the Lakers. It's just so funny to think about.
Yeah, well, LeBron is very. He's definitely poured some concrete into Cleveland. It's going to be very hard for him to leave.
I think he's leaving. It would shock me to death.
Yeah.
If LeBron left again at the end of this season for LA.
I have no worries in my heart or soul.
LeBron's so much about Ohio.
It's his
brand.
There's
nothing wrong with having a vacation place in LA and having a gorgeous house there. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, and also he's going to be
I love LA. I really do.
I think he's going to be a media mogul. He's going to be doing Space Jam 2.
He's going to be acting, but the thing is, he purposely came back to Ohio to raise his 3 kids here.
Yeah.
He has a daughter that's less than a year old. Okay? The guy loves Ohio more than anything. Yeah, he's going to live there when he's on vacation, when he's staying there for a couple months in the summertime. He travels all summer. When he's filming movies, I don't think he wants to be running a place. He has the money to afford a place when he's making $20 million to be in a movie.
Yeah, you know what?
I mean, he's in Brentwood. He's not far from UCLA's campus.
Wait.
He's doing it so he can, it's not like he moved to the South Bay and he's going to be training at the Lakers practice facility.
Oh, okay.
He moved to Brentwood and he's going to be training at UCLA during the summertime.
Well, I mean, is it official he's doing Space Jam 2, or was that just
it's a rumor, but I mean, odds are he's going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, or he'll do something. He's going to be in another movie next summer. I mean, I can bet that.
Well, yeah, Trainwreck went pretty well. Well, except for the shooting at the thing. I mean, it did okay. People said he did a pretty good job in there, that it was pretty funny.
I still didn't see it.
I haven't seen it either. Maybe it's Amy Schumer and her anti-First Amendment or anti-Second Amendment crap that kept me from watching it so far. I did want to see it, and I still do want to see it. But it's interesting. I wonder when he does, or if he does do Space Jam 2, if that's enough to basically buy him that $22 million house for free. Now that I think about it.
With what he does for Nike and, the events they have over at the Montalban Theater over in Hollywood and Vine, Selma and Vine. Over there, I used to have dodgeball tournaments over there. That was one of my favorite buildings. But it's the aspect of being in LA with the publicity. He's going to be shooting a lot of commercials. He's going to be doing a lot of stuff. I don't blame the guy. I really don't. And if you're going on location to shoot a movie in LA for 2 to 3 months, let's say you're going there for 2 months, you're going to want to have a place that's your own. He can afford a place that's his own. And don't forget about the LA market right now. You buy that house for $21 million now. In 3 years, it's going to sell for $30.
That is possible.
Everything in LA right now is an investment. I mean, go look at Hollywood Boulevard 6 years ago. Go look at it now, and go look at it in 3 to 5 years where it's going to be.
Oh, you should see.
There's 10 new hotels going up in the area.
Culver City is absolutely exploding.
That's another area. You went to Culver City 10 years ago. Culver City was old. It was grungy. You go there now, it's new shopping plaza after new shopping plaza. Culver's getting really cool. You go to like downtown Culver. It is a really cool area by the Sony studios over there. You have the old hotel over there. It is a cool place to be. I didn't used to go hang out there a lot. I would go there on occasion. But I mean, I lived in Hollywood. But it was still a cool place to go and hang out. I mean, I was really surprised the first time I went down there. I'm like, wow, they really did a great job with this area. Really gentrified.
That's where I spend a lot of my time when I go out, and it's not like for something very specific. It's like go to see a band at a certain venue, or you have something to do on it. I'm rolling out casually to Culver City, and it's nice. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to be doing a lot of work in LA, fine. He has a home base there. I'm not necessarily sweating it at all. I would say, go ahead.
I've been pretty right about all the Cavs stuff over the last couple of years. Would you say so?
I'd say you've been pretty spot on with a lot of things. Some things we've mentioned on the air, and some things we have not mentioned on the air. You have a pretty good batting average.
I knew the Tristan deal was going to happen. I just didn't know when. I knew it was going to happen. I knew he would sign. I knew he was going to sign the 5-year deal. I just didn't know when, but I knew it was going to happen.
Well, you and I knew about LeBron before most people were talking about it.
Yes.
I mean, for a long time before. But, yeah.
Yeah, I brought it up with you years previous to that, and I had told you specifically on the phone exactly what I can't really say on the air, but right. I told you exactly what I knew at the time, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, well, certain building blocks were being set in place. The cornerstones were being built. The infrastructure was being all laid out where it's like one or two of them on their own. You go, okay, whatever. But when you laid it out, you go, wow, there's kind of no way he's not coming back. This is a real thing that's going to happen. He's actually going to do this.
And that's what I was saying all along when I was you're like I was putting pieces together that were there that didn't necessarily look like they were there. And it was sometimes at point it was complicated to put them together, but when you piece them together properly, everything was coming together. The Cavaliers neglecting the small forward position for 4 years until the fourth year when they got Luol Deng, who was a free agent.
Yeah,
they knew exactly what was going on.
That was a
rental.
rental.
They knew exactly. Every move they made was extremely calculated.
Yeah, Chris Grant's done a very good job. Gotta say.
The reason they selected Anthony Bennett over Otto Porter Jr. was calculated. Everything they did for a reason. Passing on Harrison Barnes, he was passed on for a reason.
Well, it's not like Anthony Bennett paid dividend. Well, I mean, he was part of the deal that got us Kevin Love.
Now.
But
I mean, like I said, when the Cavaliers, during that draft, I said it on the air, I said, if you're going to take a risk with the fourth pick, you should have taken Andre Drummond if you're going to take a risk. Well, and I gave the Pistons an A+++ on that draft. I remember on that night when we had that show, when the Pistons selected Andre Drummond, I said, there you go with Andre right there. The Pistons finally, one of those teams that never seems to get the number 1 or 2 overall pick, finally landed a guy. Now, it was very risky, but it was worth the risk at the 8th pick because the ceiling was so high.
Yeah, I recall that. He was a little riskier, but I mean it's hard to say. I'm combining
he was a very
drafts,
risky
but
pick. He didn't have a good year at UConn. But the thing is, he wasn't ready to be at UConn yet. He wasn't ready to be there. He didn't go through training camp there. He wasn't ready to be there yet, nor was he mature enough. I told you that I knew a lot of specifics about Andre off the court. I knew a lot about him on the court too. I knew a lot about Andre, and I knew he was going to be. I knew he was a risky pick. But, and I said that at the time, that the Cavaliers were going to sit there and take their risk. Why didn't you take your risk on Andre Drummond?
Right. Well, let's do this real fast. I'm gonna go rapid fire here. Let's just kind of run through the teams and give me a thought on what you've noticed on them so far. The Pistons you're touching on, so we'll stay there.
The Pistons,
with Reggie
the Pistons
Jackson.
remind me a lot so far. Okay, Reggie Jackson's had a decent year. I'm going to give him that so far. He has looked decent.
Decent or very good? Because UFC as MMA loves him.
He has looked very good.
Very
I'll
good.
give him that. He's looked very good. But I think a lot of it is a byproduct of how good Andre Drummond has looked. This team reminds me a lot of the Magic when Dwight Howard was there in his prime at one point. Not a ton of talent around him, a couple of decent players, but they really buy into Andre, and Andre is a focal point of that team. Reggie Jackson looks great in spurts. He really does. Look what he did with Oklahoma City a few years ago when Russell Westbrook was. I'm not saying Reggie Jackson's a bad player. I never said that. All I said was Reggie Jackson, I think, was overpaid. I don't think he's a great player. There are times when Reggie looks good. I don't know if he's a number 1 or number 2 building block for a team that's going to win a championship. That's what I was saying.
Well, and of course the Tristan deal changes what a good contract and a bad contract looks like.
It's the same thing with Gordon Hayward and Chandler Parsons, too. You look at what these guys get paid, and you're like, okay, suddenly they're worth it. I mean, if Enes Kanter's worth that kind of money, then Reggie Jackson's worth that kind of money. Tristan Thompson's worth that kind of money. Enes Kanter's one of the worst defensive centers in the league.
Would you say he's better or worse than Semi Erden?
He's better than Semi Erden. Semi Erden couldn't move.
The slug. Hey, what do you think about the Atlanta Hawks? Just give me like a quick something. When I say the team
Hawks
name,
surprised me what they're doing. No, Budenholzer's a great coach. I mean, I didn't think they were going to be this good. I mean, I'm being honest. I didn't think they were going to be as good as they were last year. And they look like a 60-win basketball team right now. They do.
Yeah, they're keeping up what they were doing.
Yeah, they do. I mean, losing to Amari Carroll was a big loss, but it hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. And look at the Raptors had done with Amari Carroll before he got injured. It did a huge acquisition for them.
Right.
But here's the thing with the Raptors. The Raptors are one of those teams. They start off hot every year. Remember how good they were at the beginning of last year?
Uh-huh.
They start off very, very hot.
A lot like the Hawks.
Like that team to beat, and they fade off every year. The problem is the Raptors still don't have that surefire number 1 scorer, number 2, which is why they can't compete with a team like the Cavs late in the season. Because when you've got Love, LeBron, and Kyrie, and guys like Mo Williams, J.R. Shumpert, hitting on all cylinders, and you've got these guys from all over the place, and they just have more depth than they do. You have guys that can score at a ridiculous pace, which the Raptors don't have. Kyle Lowry's a good player, but he's not going to score at will. He's not going to put up 50 for you on any given night.
Yeah. You don't see LeBron really doing that too much these days, but Kyrie's doing it.
LeBron
Who knows? Maybe Love
doesn't
will.
need to. When LeBron wants to
Exactly.
take over, LeBron takes over. But also LeBron can do it with his passing. He's such a good
Very
passer.
true.
I mean, if you watched the Jazz game the other night, I was just sitting there in awe. I'm like, oh my God, is he good?
Yeah, he's a conductor. Yeah. He's someone that's like a foreman on a complex job, and he has everybody doing the right thing.
You can't sit there and say LeBron's not in his prime anymore because he puts up a performance like that, and he just turns it on when he wants to turn it off.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he does because the Cavs are trailing by a few to the Knicks. Plenty of game to go at the half.
Yep.
What about the Miami Heat, his old team? They're sitting there at 6-3, third seed so far.
The Heat look decent too, but again, are they going to be there at the end of the year? They'll be in the playoffs. I think the Heat will be in the playoffs. I have no doubt about that. But we witnessed it. I was at the Cavs game, against the Heat a couple weeks ago. Which I believe I think that was opening night.
Well, yeah, we lost in Chicago for the opening game, but then it was a home opener.
The home opener.
Right, yeah.
Opener. And the Cavaliers wiped the floor with Miami in the second half. They wiped the floor with them because Miami doesn't have any depth. Wade is so good, Bosh is good. They've got a very good starting lineup. But the problem is you go and you get their bench. The Cavaliers' bench will destroy just about any other bench in the league other than Golden State on any given night. Look at the Cavs' bench. Mo Williams could be starting for 80% of the teams in the league, 70% maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 70%. Okay? then when Shump gets healthy, you've got JR coming off your bench. You have Richard Jefferson, who's been phenomenal this season. You have Tristan Thompson, the $82 million man. And Verjao has not been great this season. I'm going to just give it to early season jitters, and then he might be done. I mean, I don't know. Well, it remains to be seen. It's still been early basketball, but let's see.
But the good part about Verjao, about Sideshow Bob, the good thing is we don't need him. If he comes through, it's going to be great. I mean, we do need him for like that depth and for the fouls and for the height and the size and the rebounding and the energy. I mean, I get it. I'm not saying we don't need him, but you know, if he doesn't come back, it's not going to completely derail what we're doing. But if he is there and he can come back, it's going to be just a huge feather in the cap and just added depth and size and strength and rebounding. It would be great, but it's not make or break hinging on Verjao this year. Thankfully.
Yeah. Any added value he gives it to Cavs at this point is great.
Yeah, he's making a few bucks too. He signed a decent deal several years ago. But okay, so we're looking good on the bench. But what about the team that beat us, the Chicago Bulls? How are they looking so far?
They don't look that great. They look very average, and they look like they've lost their defensive identity.
And is there trouble in Derrick Rose land? I mean, you hear the rumblings out there that it might be time for a divorce. Are we making too much of that?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, that's getting rid of a Bernie Kosar because of diminishing skills. Okay, not quite exactly, but, comparable. You lose the face of a franchise, kind of. Noah's getting older, and anyhow. What about Paul George and the Pacers?
They're one of those teams that they're very mediocre. I could see them coming into the 8th seed in the East, but Monte Ellis looks terrible. And they have no front court. That's another one of the problems.
Hornets, sitting there at 4-4.
They're one of those teams that's probably going to win somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah, the Bucks.
I like Milwaukee a lot. I still think they're very inconsistent. They're going to give you bad nights and they're going to give you great nights. It all depends on those guys. I think they're a very, very young basketball team. I really like Milwaukee though.
Is that a Jason Kidd thing? Is that a coaching thing with the inconsistency, or just the talent?
No, it's just young kids. It's what happens when you have young guys.
Yeah, the Knicks.
The Knicks are not as bad as everybody thought they're going to. Porzingis.
Yeah, he's looking
I'll
good.
be the first one to admit, I did not think he was close to NBA ready. He looks great.
Well, do you just talk it up because he's a European, tall, lanky, white dude, and you just said, nah, this guy ain't going to make it?
He's going to be a future star, judging by what I've seen so far. But at the same time, we saw the first players to come off the board. Karl Anthony Towns looks like a superstar, in my opinion. Superstar. The reason the Lakers took D'Angelo Russell, now that I've gotten to learn more about it, one of the reasons they wound up deciding on Russell ultimately over Jahlil Okafor is they were convinced that they were going to wind up signing LaMarcus Aldridge in free agency.
They were that close. They thought
they thought they were that close. I don't know if they were that close, but they thought they were that close, and that they were going to have LaMarcus and they were going to have Julius Randle in the front court.
Okay.
So they ultimately decided that's the problem which you can't do sometimes.
Remind me again what
Lakers
goes.
Look like a hot mess.
Yeah. What goes first? Remind me again. I get my sports confused in the free agency thing. Is it free agency and then the draft, or the draft and then free agency?
It's the draft and then free agency. But players are starting to players are able to talk right after that. But they were very convinced that they were going to get LaMarcus Aldridge at that point, so they took D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo's really struggled so far to look like an NBA point guard.
And they're not playing him in the fourth quarter. It's kind of weird.
No, and that's the problem. Byron Scott is – I don't know what Byron's doing. I never knew what Byron was doing. He's a terrible coach.
But these guys keep getting paid. They keep getting jobs. They're doing something right to keep getting paid. But, winning isn't one of them. What about the Orlando Magic?
The Magic, again, they're one of those teams that has a lot of young, really, really top-tier talent on it. They're one of those teams that just can't put it together quite yet, but they are fun to watch. They've had some pretty impressive games. Oladipo looks like he's coming into his own.
Celtics
again. They're built. Their offense is built by their sixth man.
Explain that.
Their offense is built by by Isaiah Thomas. He's the one who controls their entire tempo, and he doesn't even start.
That's a weird dynamic. Yeah, that's I don't know. That's kind of weird to me. Then rounding it out, we got Wizards, Nets, and Sixers. Any thoughts on these guys?
The Nets suck. The Sixers suck. The Sixers, I mean, I was at the Sixers game last week, and I'm watching Jahlil Okafor play. He's allergic to rebounding in basketball, from what I've seen. I mean, but he's he's so polished offensively.
Allergic
to
rebounding.
He's going to be one of the best offensives. He's already one of the better offensive centers in the league. I mean, in a couple of years, he's going to be one of the best. In a year or two, he's going to be great. Nerlens Noel's a good player. T.J. McConnell looks like he's a great future backup point guard. He's getting a lot of assists. He reminds me a lot of like a Della Vadova type, T.J. McConnell. I mean, I got to see him in Arizona for a few years, and I always really liked him. I always thought he was too small to play in the NBA. He reminded me of an Aaron Kraft who could shoot.
Ah, okay. Yeah, Kraft he was a deli kind of, a lot of energy. Maybe not the best shot by any stretch, but yeah. I mean, everybody brings different skills to the table. If everybody was the same player, it wouldn't be fun to watch. Different people have different deficiencies and strengths, and it's fun watching them develop. And hopefully, I hate seeing injuries. You want to see everybody healthy. But, unfortunately or fortunately, just what it is, durability is one of those things you have to consider. And I think that's your main point about the Miami Heat is just, are they durable enough to last the season and then make a run in the playoffs? History would suggest no.
That's the question. I don't see the Heat giving the Cavs a run for their money.
Yeah.
They're one of those teams. Like I said, I don't think they're a bad basketball team. I think they're a very good basketball team. I think people underestimate the Cavs and how good they really are.
They look kind of filthy sometimes. Not consistently in every single game, but they look pretty ridiculous and deep.
We've seen, and I'll go back to the Andrew Wiggins trade for a second, because we've seen Andrew Wiggins this year, and we've seen how he struggled. He's had some good games, he's had some really bad games. The Cavaliers, again, both teams won that trade. The Cavaliers are getting a guy for 4 to 5 years, who's an all-star power forward.
At his peak.
Just got a nice offensive rebound. Didn't finish, but just got a nice offensive rebound. Looks to be much more comfortable this year. He's fitting in well. I'm telling you, Wiggins would have never fit on this team. Wiggins could be a future Hall of Famer, but Kevin Love likely will be too.
Right. Well, was he right? Look, we got a great player in his peak. I hate that we had to lose Wiggins for it, but hey, we got LeBron, whatever. I don't know. Do you want to roll through the West really quick, or you want to just...
Yeah, sure. We can roll through the West.
All right, we talked about the Warriors. They're great. They're fantastic. They're undefeated. Steph Curry looks amazing. I mean, what else? We don't need to talk about them. The Spurs, you basically said LaMarcus Aldridge, he's got to find his groove over there. But, I mean, you got Popovich, you got Duncan, you got a lot of players that...
They'll get it in sync. I mean, LaMarcus doesn't look like he's entirely comfortable yet, which is... It's tough to get acclimated to a new system, the team that's been, that's had the same guys as their focal point for the last 15 years, 10 years. So these guys have been together nonstop, and suddenly, you bring another guy into the fold. And it's suddenly, it changes up a little bit. I think they'll adapt. They're San Antonio. They'll manage to adapt to it. Getting into other teams in the West too.
Thunder.
I've already talked about Golden State. I've given you my 2 cents on them. I think they're great. I think, though, once you play a team that can slow down the basement, obviously Memphis isn't there anymore. Memphis couldn't do it against the Cavs. They couldn't do it against Golden State. Memphis looks finished.
Oh, done, huh?
I don't, they just don't look like themselves. They, it happens with these older teams. Sometimes it happens with these guys. And I think Memphis is just one of those teams that just can have a bad year.
Well, they're sitting at 3-6, not looking the best. What about the Thunder? Unfortunately, Durant has another injury going on.
I didn't even see what the injury was. I haven't even had time to pay attention to it yet. What happened?
I don't know. What is it specifically? Let me look around here. Talk about it without him. What the heck? What is it? An ankle? Hang on. Let me just make sure I'm saying this correct. Positive Kevin Durant. Okay, I'm sorry. It's a strained left hamstring, out for at least a week. Sorry about that. There you go. Strained hamstring.
He's out for a week. It's nothing. It is something to think about because he obviously is out. But
yeah, 5 games, 10 days. Nothing too serious. But but now it's just another one of these things. He's starting to become a little injury prone, just a little bit now. Something to be concerned about, I would say. LeBron with his back in game 1 or 2, and everybody was freaking out there. Oh, it's over. But you got to pay attention to those things. They are important.
Yeah, exactly. I think LeBron looks fine to me.
Oh yeah.
And
it was an early season scare with that, but the Thunder. I mean, their window could close at the end of this season. I mean, it could be make or break time for these guys. It just might be.
Oh, it is make or break time. They don't have a choice but to win it this year.
And of course, as a Cavs fan, I sure hope they don't, but I wouldn't mind beating them in the finals. I'm okay with that. Well, okay, that leaves us with the Clippers. You said they don't scare you. There's something off about the team that just doesn't instill fear. Something's off with them. I mean, they're right around 500, 5-4. But yeah, the West does not look amazing. A lot of 6, 5, and 4 win teams in that conference. I think the gap is closed between the East and the West. Would you kind of agree with that too, on a larger scale?
I wouldn't go that far yet. I mean, I think the Cavaliers are still really the only elite team in the East. I think the West still has some elite teams other than Golden State. I just don't see the East being as good yet.
Okay, so probably the teams that could win it, maybe Clippers, Thunder, Spurs, Warriors, and then the East. Not really feeling the Hawks, Heat, Raptors, Pistons, Bulls necessarily.
I like the Hawks, but we saw what the Hawks did in the playoffs this year. What's to make me think any differently?
That's fair. Utah Jazz, they put up a hell of a game against us. Do they really have something special brewing over there? Have they kind of taken the place of the Grizzlies? Have they kind of swapped spots?
Taking the place of the Grizzlies?
The Utah Jazz. Have they kind of swapped spots now?
I mean, the Jazz are a good defensive team. Although they didn't play that great the other night against the Cavs, they gave up 118 points.
Yeah.
But, I think the Jazz are still a year away from being really good. I mean, I think losing Dante Exum really hurt them. I think it really hurt them. So I think they're going to be okay. I do. I think Utah's a good basketball team. They should make the playoffs out in the West this year, especially with the way New Orleans is playing.
And they're a team on the rise. What about the Mavericks? Obviously losing DeAndre and.
Well, they never had DeAndre, so.
That's true. I'll give you that. But that was a chance to improve.
Chandler because of it.
Yeah, and that's what hurts them.
But no matter what, even with DeAndre Jordan, that team was not going to wind up winning the West. I'll tell you that. With or without DeAndre Jordan, they were not going to win the West.
And I guess are the Rockets in the same boat then? They got a couple, they got some talent there. Obviously, James Harden.
I think the Rockets are supremely talented. I mean, if you look at them, they've got Dwight Howard, who's the top, he's one of the best centers in the league. You've got James Harden, who's a top 5 player in the league. You have, I don't know why I'm blinking right now. It's just been such a long day. You've got Ty Lawson. You've got a lot of really good players in Houston, and it just doesn't make sense why they're not exactly clicking right now.
Maybe coaching, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? What about the Suns? That's a team.
I mean, they've got Trevor Ariza, too. I mean, Corey Brewer was great last year at points. I mean, I just don't get why they're struggling so much. I mean, they should turn it around, but they don't look very good early on. The Suns are one of those teams that really, again, they thought they were going to get LaMarcus, and they didn't. If they would have had LaMarcus, they would have been a legitimate contender in the West.
If the playoffs started today with tiebreaker, they're sitting at the 8th seed, kind of tied with the record with the Timberwolves and Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
So, any of those 3 teams, the T-Wolves, the Nuggets, or Suns, any of those kind of jump out at you?
The Nuggets stink. The T-Wolves are, the T-Wolves have a lot of young talent. They're still a couple of years away, though. They're still 2 years away from getting close to the playoffs.
Okay. Well, rounding it out, we got the Blazers, Grizzlies, Kings, Pelicans, Lakers. We talked about the Pelicans, we talked about the Lakers, and the Grizzlies, so I guess it's just Blazers and Kings. A whole lot of meh.
The Blazers are just one of those teams that just, they lost Wesley Matthews, Nicholas Batum, Robin Lopez, and LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, that's tough to overcome.
You lose 4/5 of your starting lineup, it's not going to be easy to overcome that.
It's a lot like when LeBron left. It was like everybody left. Even the parking attendant left. Everything. The coach was gone. Shaq was gone. I mean, just like everybody. It was a mass exodus on that team. Yeah, you can't really compare last year to this year when the roster overturns that way. All right. Well, let's just flip it for 1 second, and we'll end this program. Thanks for joining me again, Zach. And by the way, if you're not following Zach on Twitter, he's at ZBaris. That's ZBaris. Ohio State. JT Barrett got pulled over for his OVI, operating a vehicle intoxicated. Stupid in the day and age of Uber and Lyft. Give me a break. But he took his lumps. Sat out, and now he's coming back this week. What do you make of the top 4 in the college selection process in general? Are you liking how this is coming together? Does it make sense?
I think the college playoff committee. Does Ohio State deserve to be below Alabama right now? No, but
yeah,
Bama lost to a bad Ole Miss team.
Yeah. Well, I just say, if you're the champ from the previous year and you go undefeated, you have to be in that top 4 somewhere. Yeah, I couldn't imagine a scenario. Hell, undefeated Iowa is sitting there at 9-0. That's a little weird to look at.
Iowa hasn't played anyone, but again, if Ohio State runs the table, I'd be shocked if they're not the number 1 team in the country.
Well, that's what they're saying about Ohio State, is that we haven't played anyone.
If Ohio State's managed to rip off wins against Michigan State, Michigan, and then an undefeated Iowa, they should be the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you like JT Barrett at quarterback? Just Cardale is.
I do like JT at quarterback. I just don't think the offense is suited well enough for Cardale Jones.
It was last year. It sure was last year, which is so weird to me.
It was different. Well, Tom Herman was also a different coordinator last year, and that was a really sick play by LeBron just now on the reverse layup.
So we shouldn't be holding our breath with Illinois, is what we're saying.
They always play us tough. I will say that. I'll give it to them that they always play us tough.
Yeah, the conference games can be a little tricky sometimes. Yeah, Tom Herman. Look at Houston. They're doing really well. They're undefeated. They're 9-0. Okay, fine. Who are they playing? But they're not losing. That counts for something. They're putting up quite 49 points, 59 points, 42, 59, 52. That looks like a pretty big loss right about now, losing Tom Herman. It's a very underreported storyline of this season. Houston with a great program down there now, and Ohio State having a little bit of struggles at the quarterback position. But I don't know. I got to make sure that we talk a little bit about college football. I can't handle only covering the miserable Cleveland Browns. I got to talk about a team that's great, that won the title last year. To be the champ, you got to beat the champ. I was a little surprised Michigan State lost. Of course, that Michigan game, they should have lost that one too. But, we get a couple games there at the end of the year, Michigan State and Michigan. They're not a cupcake, by any stretch. We're going to have to earn our right to win that Big Ten game and get that slot. But, we are kind of in the driver's seat, and it's nice to be a Buckeye fan right now. Even though we're dealing with JT's stupidity, it is nice to have Urban Meyer and LeBron James, in our corner. Like those two have it under control, and you got to trust the process with those guys. So, I don't know. Any final thoughts on anything in the world of sports? Because I think we've kind of covered just about everything.
Sports just kind of takes a backseat to what we've seen today. They're now saying 158 people plus killed in 6 separate terror attacks.
Yeah.
It's disgusting to see this in this day and age. It is just bad.
Well, there are some days, and I say this half tongue-in-cheek and half completely serious. I do the sports shows. To paraphrase Mike Polk Jr. says, and I know there are a lot of more important things in this world, and you are supposed to be my pleasant distraction from those things, in his famous Factory of Sadness rant. But, I really do. I do quite often go to sports to kind of distract me from all the political bullshit. But, when the Browns are this miserable, sometimes I got to go do a political show just to get my mind off the misery of being a Cleveland sports fan who's never celebrated a championship in 36 years in 3 sports. It's kind of ridiculous. So I kind of say that tongue-in-cheek, but yeah, you know what? At least there for a while, until you brought it up right at the end, I did kind of forget about what was going on, and As the news reports started happening, 2 dead in a bombing, 5 dead, 15 wounded, 30 dead, and as the numbers kept going up, and I realized what was going on, that this was a coordinated attack in multiple locations. My fist just kind of started clenching, and I just kind of started tapping my foot, and I just started getting really angry, really mad at the evil in this world, and I could feel it washing over me, and I can't stand the injustice and the stupidity and just the miserable nature of these hellbound creatures that just want to inflict misery haphazardly on totally random innocent people. I really... I know as a Christian, I know I'm supposed to turn the other cheek, but I really hope there's a certain miserable, never-ending place of torment in hell for people that do what just happened over here. This wasn't a military action. This is just straight-out stupidity, and yeah, at least for a little while, we were able to get our minds off of it. So, we did that.
Yeah, I
okay.
completely agree.
Yeah, so. Anyhow, man, yeah, we'll get back to life, and it's just interesting seeing France rather shut down their borders, and that's something they haven't done, I think, since World War II. Still trying to make sense of this story; it's all evolving, but I really hope the world just wakes up to this stuff already. There are people that deserve some respect. There are people that deserve a little bit of compassion, and then there's all these other monsters out here that. There's just no room for these people in 2015.
Nope.
There's just no room for it, man.
Nope, I completely agree with you. It's sickening to even see that this could happen, and it's just terrible. It's almost at a loss for. I'm at a loss for words.
I know.
And, I'll say this. I don't. I was in 8th grade when September 11th happened, and. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember exactly where it was. I remember that day more vividly than I can remember probably any other day of my life in the last 15 years.
I remember knocking on the doors. I was living off campus. I think I was a junior in college. I can tell you what
class I was in when I saw the building. I can tell you what I was in to watch. I can tell you, that my mom came and picked me up from school. I went home and watched. I just remember that day being. I remember reading the newspaper the next day. I remember everything. I remember school was canceled. I remember everything about that day. And it's one of those days I'll never forget. And it's still, I don't think, really ever hit me until, I don't think I ever cried over September 11th until last summer, about 15, 16 months ago. I was in New York for a business trip. And I had just basically had the day off. My sister was out of town. And I said, I'm just... I don't know what to do for the day. And I asked my sister, I goes, what would you recommend? And she goes, go to the World Trade Center Museum. I went there with Mom. It's great. I was there for 4.5 hours. I have to say it was probably, it made me just really understand what happened on September 11th.
The gravity
going
of
through
it.
That museum, seeing everything, and it got to the point where, it just really made me proud to be an American. It really made me proud to be an American, I'll say that. And I'm sitting there just looking at this and going, how can people do such harm to such good people? What did these people do to deserve this? No one deserved any of that. No one deserved any of that. It was led by a bunch of brainwashed morons, from the Middle East. And, it just made me, I don't know. It just made me so angry to see that, all these innocent lives are taken for no reason whatsoever.
Right. Yeah,
People were brainwashed, and it just really got me. And it was at the point where Browns games last year, when they play the salute, when they salute the troops every game, and they play it proud to be an American. It's like I can't keep a dry eye anymore.
I remember. It hit me in Columbus. I was over there with my brother and watched a Browns game, and it was on September, and it just washed over me. And I realized that this is 14 years ago. I don't know. This is maybe 13 or 12 years ago. It was a year or two ago, and I just realized I'd never really fully dealt with this. It just washed over me, and it just hit me. And unfortunately, I just get the vibe, Zach, that the world has changed again. I think Europe is starting to wake up. I pray to God that they're starting to wake up to this monstrosity and it really needs to be wiped off the face of the earth. The problem needs to be eradicated, like the cockroaches that they are, this type of indoctrination and violence. It needs to end. There's a much greater conversation that we can have about U.S. foreign policy and all of that jazz, but, I guess you and I can definitely agree our thoughts and prayers go out to those people in Paris right now. Nobody goes to a rock show and expects to be slaughtered. So, hey, man, we'll end it there. We'll pick it up later. I appreciate your time as always. We'll do this again real soon. Thank you very much for joining us, Zach. And for everybody out there in the TNAM radio network, I want to thank you. I really do appreciate you. I do love you. We'll talk again soon. Peace.
And this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the newamericanmedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. There are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed, because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets, come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.